ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world. We are live on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. The higher military court in Bissau sentences soldiers involved in the February 2022 failed military coup. A Burkinabe civil society group demands the immediate release of two activists a year after their forceful arrest. The Nigeria Senate orders a probe into allegations of U.S. aid terrorism financing in the country.
We must hear from our own security agencies. We must hear from our intelligence agencies and questionings and all that to brief us. And security is not something we discuss in the market.
And Mali mourns the demise of legendary filmmaker Suleimana Cisse. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone and the worldwide on wadr.org. Newslink begins in Guinea-Bissau as the higher military courts in the capital on Wednesday handed down sentences to soldiers involved in a failed coup plot on February 1, 2022. Out of the 24 indicted soldiers, 14 will serve prison terms ranging from 12 to 29 years. According to the ruling, 3 of the accused received a 29-year prison sentence each, 8 others to 24 years and 3 to 12 years in prison. The convicted military personnel were also dismissed from the Bissau Guinea Armed Forces. The judgment comes 3 years after the event and only concerns 24 of the 50 people initially implicated in the attempted coup. As a reminder, on February 1, 2022, a group of soldiers attempted to overthrow the government of President Umaru Sissoco Embalo, elected in 2019. The attack failed thanks to the rapid intervention of forces loyal to the president and the international community. In Guinea, the activist and president of the Guinean Social Forces Forum was abducted by members of the Special Forces Group on the 9th of Tuesday to Wednesday at his home. This testimony came from his wife and lawyer. The unthemed kidnapping of a Guinean civil society actor is widely denounced by socio-political actors and the international community who are also demanding his release. More details in this report by WADR's Chiano Alpha Ibrahim Abaude in Conakry and voiced by Augustine Colley.
After Fonike Menge, Biloba and the journalist Maroon Kamara, it was the turn of Abdou Sako, coordinator of the Forum of Social Forces of Guinea, to be kidnapped at his home by hooded men on Tuesday. Amami Samori Traoré, Abdou Sako's lawyer, looks back on the circumstances of his arrest.
We expected this because we had already filed a complaint, anticipating the threat of forced exposure. Moreover, he was receiving threats and this was evident to everyone. This case is similar to many others. Those who came to abduct him were individuals in uniform, some armed with weapons and others with sharp objects. The operation was extremely tense because they couldn't break down the door. Instead, they entered through the ceiling, having perforated it. They were spotted in a bathroom area where they were filmed. They were aggressive and intimidating.
Members of the Guinean Social Forces Forum were before the media on Wednesday. On his occasion, they denounced the arrest of their coordinator. They demand the release of Abdou Sako. Ibrahim Mbalaya Jallo is the spokesman for the Guinean forces.
This incident constitutes a serious violation of fundamental rights and civil liberties in Guinea. It occurs in a context marked by a resurgence of abductions and intimidation targeting civil society actors who are working towards the restoration of constitutional order and the protection of human rights. We strongly condemn this forced disappearance and demand the immediate and unconditional release of Abdou Sako.
The United States, through its embassy in Conakry, reacted on Wednesday to the arrest of Abdou Sako. They asked the Guinean government to quickly investigate this incident and identify those responsible and ensure that due procedures are respected.
Augustine Colley voiced the report sent in by Conakry correspondent Chiano Alpha Ibrahima Baude. So, in the Sahel region, the CSO known as the Citizen Broom in Burkina Faso is calling for the immediate release of 2 activists a year after their disappearance. Rasmani Zenaba and Basiru Bajo were forcefully drafted to the battlefield by the government on February 20, 2024. 12 months later, the families of Zenaba and Bajo still have no news regarding their whereabouts, according to a statement from the organization. The Citizens Broom denounced this situation and demands their release. Echiatiso has the rest of the details in this report, filed in by WADR's Martin Kaba in Ouagadougou.
Abudu Rasman Zenaba, in charge of organization of the Citizens Broom, and activist Bashiru Bajo, administrator of social affairs, were respectively kidnapped on February 20 and 21, 2024 in Ouagadougou. Thus, it has been exactly 1 year since these 2 civil society leaders were forcibly conscripted for operational theaters. In its statement, the civil society organization recalls that a court decision had nevertheless ordered the suspension of requisitions. The statement stated, and I quote, "Despite this court decision, which leaves no ambiguity about the illegal nature of the punitive requisitions, comrades Bashiru Bajo and Abudu Rasman Zenaba were kidnapped and forcibly conscripted, as were several other citizens. These include leaders of civil society organizations, politicians, journalists, media hosts, media columnists, social media activists, magistrates, etc., all arbitrarily deprived of their rights and freedom." End of quote. The Citizens Broom indicates that since the execution of these requisitions, the conscripted individuals have not been allowed to contact their relatives. It added, and I quote, "This prolonged arbitrary and illegal sequestration of citizens undoubtedly constitutes a serious violation of human dignity." End of quote. The group also calls for the immediate release of the 2 militants and all individuals conscripted for operational theaters to date.
And that's Martin Kaba's report, voiced by Eche Atiso.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Côte d'Ivoire, political parties are stepping up campaign and restructuring activities less than 9 months before the presidential election. For the opposition Democratic Party of Ivory Coast PDCI, 4 executives have filed a complaint against the party's president, Tijani Chiam. They accused him of having violated the party's test during the election as head of the PDCI. A hearing has been set for February 27 at the Abidjan Court of First Instance with a request for Tijani Chiam to appear. Here is our correspondent in Abidjan, Alben Ade's report, voiced by Francis Boniface.
It all started when the PDCI leader announced that he had initiated proceedings to renounce his French nationality, an announcement that caused a reaction from PDCI activists in Yopougon, Dimbokro, Cocody, and Boaké. For these activists, Tijan Thiam did not meet the eligibility conditions during the convention which allowed his election to the presidency of the PDCI in December 2023. The complainant relied on Article 41, Paragraph 1 of the PDCI statutes, which stipulates that to be eligible for the presidency of the PDCI RDA, a candidate must exclusively be of Ivorian nationality. These PDI activists, who are demanding the immediate dismissal of Tijan Thiam, recall also that he did not have 10 years of activism within the party. For them, his presence at the head of the party is illegitimate and detrimental to the future of the opposition political formation. The day after this complaint, the executive secretary of the PDCI, through a press release, reassured the party's activists and supporters, recalling that Tijan Thiam was elected in accordance with the statutes and internal regulations of the opposition party. The note also specifies that Tijan Thiam does not suffer from any lack of legitimacy or equality in the exercise of his function. The party therefore asks its activists to remain calm in the face of what it describes as a vain attempt, diversion of opponents.
That Alben Ade's report, voiced by Francis Boniface. And just before we go for break, the Nigerian Senate has summoned Security Intelligence Chief to investigate claims that the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, is financing terrorism activities in the country. The resolution followed a motion of urgent national security raised by Senator Ali Ndome, APC Bono South, during plenary in Abuja. As Usman Umar reports, since an American Congressman, Scott Perry, made a presentation.
Senator Ndume stressed the need for a thorough probe, citing the prolonged devastation caused by Boko Haram. His concerns align with recent remarks by Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, who suggested in an interview with Al Jazeera that armed groups in Nigeria receive international financial backing. Senate President Godswill Akpabio upheld the resolution but cautioned against public discussions on sensitive security matters. He therefore directed that intelligence chiefs first brief senators in a closed-door session for clarity.
We must hear from our own security agencies. We must hear from our intelligence agencies and questionings and all that to brief us. And security is not something we discuss in the market. It's something that should be done in closed session.
Senator Abdul Ningi from Bauchi Central backed this approach, arguing that an open debate will not do justice to the gravity of the allegations.
The pointer by the representative by Mr. Perry Scott, I think there will be light at the end of the tunnel. Let us support this motion wholeheartedly so that we can unravel the veracity or otherwise of the allegation.
These concerns gained international traction after U.S. Congressman Scott Perry accused USAID of indirectly funding terrorist groups, including Boko Haram, during a congressional hearing on government inefficiency. The allegations have fueled global scrutiny, especially in Africa, where USAID provides significant aid. Nigeria has battled Boko Haram since 2009, with over 2.5 million people displaced and thousands killed, particularly in Borno and Yobe State, northeastern Nigeria. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
You're still listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM Dakar, Senegal. And we are live on wadr.org. We're also active on Facebook at WADR English Service, as well as YouTube at WADR News. Here's a reminder of our top stories. The higher military court in Bissau sentences soldiers involved in February 2022 failed military coup. A Burkinabe civil society group demands the immediate release of two activists a year after their forceful arrest. The Nigeria Senate orders a probe into allegations of USAID terrorism financing in the country. Still ahead in the news, Mali mourns the demise of legendary film maker Suleiman Assisi. We also have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In a bold move, the Civil Service Agency of Liberia has blocked the salaries of 216 suspected officials from various ministries, including the State, Internal Affairs, Foreign Affairs, Justice, the Government Commission, the Liberia Land Authority, the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, and the Public Procurement Concession Commission. This action was initiated by President Joseph Boakai, who suspended a total of 457 officials for 1 month without pay due to their failure to declare their assets. CSA Director General Josiah Joke explained that this initiative is part of a larger strategy to enforce government assets declaration policy, which is expected to save the Liberian government over $104,000.
The Civil Service Agency immediately blocked 216 government officials from spending entities whose payrolls are controlled and managed by the CSA for the month of February. This action by the CSA is consistent with the President's action. That means effective this February, the officials concerned will not receive their salaries. Those affected ministries, agencies, and commissions include The Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs, we have up to 2 officials whose salaries have been blocked. The Ministry of Internal Affairs, we have up to 198 officials. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we have up to 3 officials. The rest is put in one category, and those include the Governance Commission, the Public Procurement Concession Commission, the PPCC, Liberia Land Authority, the Ministry of Justice, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the Ministry of National Defense, and several others are in one category. Officials in those ministries were also affected by the President's action. As a result of the CSA's action for the month of February, the CSA is saving 104,073.25 cents United States dollars.
Josiah Joake is the Liberian CSA Director General. A news coming in indicates that the National Conference of Niger, which opened on February 15, reached a crucial milestone on Wednesday, February 19, with the restitution of the work of the thematic commissions. The question of the duration of the transition, which must lead the country towards a new political and institutional era, was at the center of the debates. Thus, the recommendations of the various commissions coverage towards a long-term transition between 5 to 10 years. Despite differences over the exact duration, all the committees agreed on the need for a well-structured and managed transition. Subcommittee number 2 thus recommended a 5-year renewable transition in line with the agendas of the members of countries of the Alliance of Sahel States, AES. According to the members of the subcommittee, this period should allow the country to be stabilized, institutions be strengthened, and security and economic challenges be addressed. Let's turn attention to Ghana, as the country's Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Emmanuel Kofi-Boah, has painted a grim picture of the devastating impact of illegal mining, popularly known as galamsey, on the country. Addressing Parliament, he detailed how illegal miners have become more sophisticated, causing severe destructions to the country's land, water bodies, and natural resources. Despite these challenges, the minister reaffirmed the government's commitment to tackling illegal mining, vowing that it will not relent in its fight. WADR's Nadide Tsete reports.
Delivering a statement in Parliament on Wednesday, February 19, 2025, Minister of Land and Natural Resources Emmanuel Kofi-Boah highlighted the alarming state of Ghana's battle against galamsey. He revealed that over 40 forest reserves have been invaded by illegal miners, with 9 of them now completely inaccessible to officials of the Forestry Commission.
This situation has assumed crisis proportions with dire national security and public health consequences that require immediate attention. Honourable Speaker, it will interest you to note that out of the 288 forest reserves that I have mentioned, a whopping 44 of these forest reserves are under serious attack by illegal miners, and an estimated area of over 5,000 hectares has been devastated. And to put it puterially, about 7,000 standard football fields is what I'm talking about. That has been devastated.
MP for Kaikui Central Patrick Yawama questioned how the minister intended to succeed in the fight against galamsey when he is likely to come under pressure from MPs from both sides of the House.
It's not going to be easy. It requires a serious hand with a tough skin to go after these illegal activities. Mr. Speaker, Kofi, you'll be tempted. Your colleagues will be involved, both sides. They will come to you to plead with you. Nolle prosequi, you'll be tempted with it.
In response, the minister outlined a series of measures to combat illegal mining, including deploying river guards and restoring degraded lands. He also called for collective national support to address the menace.
We owe it to ourselves, our children, our future generations, and secure a sustainable future for our beloved nation.
For WADR, Nadidi Teti, Accra.
Finally, Mali, the famous filmmaker Souleymane Cissé died on Wednesday in Bamako at age 84. author of several films. In 2023, in Cannes, he received a Golden Coach, a trophy awarded during the filmmaker's fortnight. His death comes a few days before the opening of FESPACO in Ouagadougou, where he was to take part as a jury member. Souleymane Cissé, during his rich career, made a mark in the history of Malian cinema through numerous achievements. In 1987, his film titled Yalen, Light in the Local Bambara language, won the jury prize at the Senegal Films Festival in France. Considered the father of the country's cinema, Souleymane Cissé has left an immense void in the country's world of cinema.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
For major development and banner headlines on the Ghanaian national dailies, let's join Nadi Detete for the details.
Greetings. We'll start off with the Daily Graphic newspaper. Front page, Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council backs Mahama's lean administration, lauds Ghanaians for commitment to democracy. Other stories here, Catholic bishops want government to commit to partnership for education reforms. And also here, National Economic Dialogue scheduled for March 3. That'll be it for the Daily Graphic newspaper. Front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, let's prioritize organic fertilizer in crop production. That's according to Professor Miller. Also here, prove your critics wrong. President Mahama urges reconstituted Council of State. Also on the front page of the Ghanaian Times, government and GJA to meet over journalist safety. And finally, Ghana Health Service dedicates health desks at regional and district hospitals to support persons living with disabilities. To the New Crusading Guide newspaper front page, OSP invites Jacob Amwa and Wendy Ashong Newman, as well as Frida Amwa, for investigation. Other stories here, establish Hajj Trust Fund to ensure dedicated funding. That'll be it for the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Now to the Daily Guide newspaper front page, bench warrant for Akwetia MP over contempt. Also here, former NSC officials deny ghost names allegation. And also, Nana B sues government over post-election job termination. And finally, Anna 70% cocoa price pledge. That's according to the minority to the government. Now to the Daily Dispatch newspaper. Government dares clock sag over strike action. And you can count on the Council of State at all times. Dua Jaho tells Mahama. Dua Jaho is the chairman of the newly constituted Council of State. The Supreme newspaper, High Court imposes cost on National Chairman of the NDC, Asiedun Ketia, for witness omission. That'll be it for the Supreme newspaper. The Daily Analyst, government to constitute stakeholder committee to reform downstream petroleum sector, and BOG conduct audit of remittance transactions from October 1, 2024 to December 31, 2024. That's it for the newspaper review segment. Is back to you.
Thank you very much, Nadi Detete, for the newspaper review.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest interview this afternoon takes us back to Nigeria, where the Senate has summoned the security intelligence chiefs to investigate claims that the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, is financing terrorism in the country. The resolution followed a motion of urgent motion, national security, raised by Senator Ali Indume, APC Bono South, during a plenary in Abuja. Our guest is security analyst, public policy analyst, and country director for Equal Access International, Dr. Maji Peters. He speaks about the issue while calling for intense probe.
It's expected they don't say things like this that compromise the sovereignty of a nation, and the executive or the legislature will be quiet. So it is expected, the summon is expected, and for them to hear clarification. But since Scott Perry made that assertion, there have been a lot of issues that has come up. The U.S. Embassy yesterday debunked it, and said they were not financing terrorism in Nigeria, and they are very committed to Nigeria's fight and supporting Nigeria's issue around counter-terrorism. But the truth is that when that came up, it raises a lot of concern. I'm not saying AID, United States Agency for International Development, is complicit, but we won't run away from the fact that there are always interferences in domestic affairs of other nations, especially when they are benefit for the third-party interest. That happens globally. It happens everywhere. We're still seeing it happen in the Sahel. We're seeing that happen in CAR. We're seeing it happen in DRC. So it does happen. So when people raise those kind of assertions, it might have been a slip. It might have been something that is true. But if I'm in the Senate, I will ask for verifiable evidence, because we'll push further to meet with the lawmaker in the U.S. to give us evidence of what he sees, and we will ask on the Information Bill of the U.S. to ask if we could get details of what Elon Musk and his group has found out that has led to that assertion. I won't sweep it under the carpet.
In other parts of the Sahel, they are exiting some NGOs because they believe that these NGOs are those financing terrorism activities in their country. What do you think the Nigerian federal government should do regarding some other NGOs that are suspects of terrorism financing?
The government should not take it lightly when you suspect any organization, and that has happened, because one, the most important thing that the country should take very seriously is the issue of its sovereignty. So when other people come with their principles of working for humanity or humanitarian protection, and it goes contrary to the issue of your national security, you should take it very seriously. At times when they have gotten organizations on camera that were complicit of distributing foods and other humanitarian aids to organized armed groups, and they will say it's part of their work of independence and being able to work for everybody and being universal and all of that. But you see, sometimes you block aids that goes to people because you want to stop something. I have had series of experiences in humanitarian intervention, but when it compromises the internal security, sovereignty of the nation, and especially when a lot of people are being impacted by it, especially when it promotes banditry and criminality and all of that, I think there are times you allow the law to take its course. So there is nothing wrong now in federal government trying to do a mapping and a viva and a vetting of all organizations that are operating in this country, trying to track the sources of their funding and what those monies are being used for. For the national peace, it's very important for that to happen. And I will actually support that to happen to all civil society organizations, especially in INGOs operating within the framework of it.
Dr. Margie Peters is Security Public Policy Analyst and Country Director for Equal Access International. And we can join Sankule Janko for details in the world of sports.
Hello out there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. France international Kylian Mbappe was the hero as he helped his Real Madrid side to the round of 16 in the UEFA Champions League on Wednesday night. The Real Madrid forward tore Manchester City apart after netting a hat-trick against the English champions. Mbappe netted a hat-trick to send the citizens sparking from the competition before they could even reach the last 16 proper in a 3-1 and 6-3 on aggregate. Elsewhere in the UEFA Champions League, PSV Eindhoven beat Juventus 3-1 on the night and 4-3 on aggregate to progress to the next phase of the competition. French champions Paris Saint-Germain ran riots after thrashing Brest 7-0 and 10-0 on aggregate. German side Borussia Dortmund were held to a goalless draw by Portuguese side Sporting CP, but the German side won 3-0 on aggregate and booked qualification to the round of 16. Meanwhile, Egypt international Mohamed Salah scored for Liverpool in their 2-2 draw against Aston Villa in the English Premier League on Wednesday night. Salah pounced on a defensive error to put Liverpool ahead before Yuri Tillemans equalized for the Villains. The Birmingham-based Villa extended their lead before the break, but Trent Alexander-Arnold found the leveler for Liverpool in the second half. Salah's goal was not enough to earn his Liverpool side a victory, as they lead the table 8 points ahead of Arsenal with a game more. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Sheikh Njai for the technical assistance. Do interact with us on all of our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook at WADR English Service. I am Christopher Ticho. Good afternoon and enjoy the rest of our broadcast.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.